all of a sudden I heard myself say, I don't know if you can take this much longer, because I was like very, kind of holding all this grief. And all of a sudden I looked up. I literally looked up as if I was looking for who said that. And as I did, my awareness opened up out of my head. It went up into this beautiful night sky, moved out of my body into this kind of space that gave me this relief. And then I felt like, oh, this is bigger than me, and it's essentially me, and it was in my body. And then I just started crying and laughing and just feeling like, oh my God, what is this? How did this happen so quickly?
I'm here with Loch Kelly. Loch, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Rav. It's great to finally get a chance to talk to you, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, so Loch, you are a psychotherapist and non-dual meditation instructor. I think that's the best way to quickly summarize what you do.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've been a big fan of your teachings for probably 2 or 3 years. And I got introduced to your work on Sam Harris's Waking Up app, an excellent meditation app that I highly recommend. You also have an app which we can plug in as well. Yeah. It's called Effortless Mindfulness.
That's the style of meditation, but the app is actually called Mindful Glimpses.
Okay, yeah. Excellent. We can definitely link to that below. And I heard one of your conversations with Sam Harris there probably 3 years ago, and did one of your series in the app. One series, you have 2 series in the Waking Up app, and one in particular called Meditations for Awakening, which I found really interesting and helpful in kind of glimpsing the non-dual awareness, which we'll kind of talk about what that even means. But I just found you to be an exceptionally clear communicator in this space of non-duality, which anyone who's in that space will obviously admit that you are doing the impossible. And of course, right. Admitting that you can never actually distill non-duality in any kind of language, right? But yes. For trying to do that task, I think you and Sam Harris, I also put Adyashanti in that category. Yeah. You guys are some of the most effective and lucid communicators in this area, which for people who don't know, non-duality, like pure consciousness, recognizing the oneness or emptiness of consciousness is fundamentally ineffable or indescribable. But a good teacher can point you in that direction and kind of tell you what it's not, or kind of tell you what it's like, use certain metaphors, use certain kind of nudges and pointings. So I really appreciated the way you described some of these things. And I'll just say quickly, your conversation with Sam Harris called The Most Important Thing. That I would call the best conversation on non-duality that I've ever heard. And I've listened to lots of people. There's Eckhart Tolle's and Moody's of the world and many great, wonderful teachers. But that particular conversation on non-duality, I think, is just the best conversation on really describing and pinpointing what that is. So I highly recommend that conversation. I think it's only available in the Waking Up app. So we can link to that. People can use that for 30 days and listen to it there. Is it on your YouTube channel as well?
It's on my app actually too. I have a conversation with Sam on my app. So I interviewed him. We kind of exchanged. We're pretty much non-competitive and trying to help do the same work. Yeah.
Great. But yeah, that conversation, I've heard, by the way, like 4 or 5 times. The most important thing, in like how you guys just so effectively communicate what non-duality is and how to experience it, what it's like, what the mechanics of it are. So I just want to just communicate just a mild dose of sort of quasi devotion to both you guys, both you and Sam, for communicating so clearly and just helping young lads like me who otherwise would probably just spend a lifetime being confused reading some of the ancient teachings. But but people like yourself and Sam who've distilled some of these teachings and communicate in such an easy to understand manner, I greatly appreciate that. So
well, hopefully this can be part 2.
yeah, perfect. So, first question for you, Locke.
Yeah.
Just to kind of set the stage here. I'm sure we could spend probably 4 hours on this, but
Yeah.
if you want to give us the cliff notes on how you got into meditation and psychotherapy.
Yeah.
And I also just want to say, to set this up, this conversation, we're not going to focus too much on non-duality, especially because some of these topic matters might be fairly esoteric for my listeners. And I'd love to do that in a possible future conversation if this one goes well and we enjoy it and
Okay.
everything. But for this one, I'd really like to focus just kind of more introductory or more macro kind of systems level of
Sure.
meditation and psychotherapy,
Yeah.
because lots of people are really good communicators on the meditation front or the non-duality front, and some people are really good at communicating on the psychotherapy front, but you are a specialist in both, which is really
hmm
unique. And
Yes.
so I think this is a really interesting opportunity to delve into, as I see it, some tensions or some synergies even
hmm
between mindfulness and psychotherapy, and just kind of mapping out, um, what are some of the similarities, how they work together, maybe how they go in other directions. So that's what I want the focus of this conversation to be about, is two things that many people are interested in these
Right.
days: mindfulness, and a lot of people are in therapy. A lot of people are learning how to meditate. So how do those two work together, and for what situations they're meant for? Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. I mean, that's my biggest intention. The reason I even put myself out here to, uh, to speak and to teach is really because I think it's so valuable and important that people find their own way to two of the most important dimensions of our human potential, of our uh, ability to grow up and wake up to live a life of well-being and happiness and communication and relationships and work. That these are the areas that can help us not get stuck or bogged down or go off the road into extremes while we're trying so hard to be happy. So, often we go through, in the macro, we, grow up in a family and we have friends that influence us. Then we go to school and we learn subjects and we go off, maybe to college, or then we go to work and we have, significant then relationships. But it's almost like meditation and psychology are the next stages of adult education.
Mm.
So but it's not required. And meditation can be fairly cheap. You can do it fairly easily. Psychology, you at some point important to find a professional that knows what they're doing, but as we'll talk about here, to also find which style of meditation and which style of psychotherapy fits your particular place you are,
Mm.
your age, your issue that you seem to be confronting, or some kind of uh, approach of your learning style, and what kind of obstacles you have to learning.
Yeah, that's one of the questions we'll get into that I've written
Yeah,
down for you here, is the different methods of meditation and different modalities of psychotherapy. I really want to
yeah,
drill into that, actually. But first, do you
yeah,
want to,
sure.
in however way you want, try to distill in a couple of minutes how you got into mindfulness and
Yeah,
psychotherapy,
yeah.
what led you to those places?
I mean, I'll give you the shortest version I can. There's,
Sure.
obviously, and just to say that if everyone, as I've worked with many people, if you look back in your life, once you discover what this kind of awakening or higher consciousness or essential well-being is, I can see now that I met it or found it or had glimpses of it, but I didn't know what to call it. And so I passed right over it, or thought it was about whatever event or person I was with. It was like, oh, it's because of this that I experienced this. But the premise of both these psychology and meditation is that there is inherently this dimension of our consciousness that's already okay, that isn't in pain, that isn't worried, isn't anxious, doesn't have low self-esteem, and from here can be with parts of us or aspects of us or emotions that do feel these things. So I just was bumbling along, living in suburban New Jersey as a kid, and was having these moments now that I look back. But the first thing that changed happened to be, interestingly, playing sports. So I happened to be kind of a natural athlete, and I could get into what people call the zone, or into the sense of a flow consciousness. I didn't know what it was. Now I know that this is really an important dimension of meditation and living with it. So I was listening to a TV, and a sportscaster talked about a quarterback on a football team. He said, it's like he's got eyes in the back of his head. He knows, he can scan the field without looking. And I thought, oh, that's what I do when I play ice hockey goalie. And it's not that I see things behind me, but what I do is I open my peripheral vision and then feel like it almost opens 360 degrees. Then I drop into my body. So now I'm totally embodied, and I'm not pinpointing using attention or trying to concentrate on everything. I'm actually in this kind of zone where I'm trusting that as I'm looking, somebody shoots a puck and it comes through people's legs, and then my hand goes up and there's the puck in my glove. But I knew it, but I didn't know it. I didn't see it, and I wasn't concentrating. And so after a game, one of my best friends, man, you played so good. How'd you do that? And I said, oh, you really want to know? Well, I take my awareness, I drop it down, move it around. And he's like sitting there with his mouth agape, just kind of being polite. And then he goes like, oh, cool, man. And then he walks away.
Yeah. What the hell is he talking about?
What the hell is he? I don't know what he's talking about. I was just trying to, I didn't really want an answer to that. I just
by the way, I'm a Canadian, by the way, in Vancouver. And so we
okay.
have Vancouver Connect. So my Canadian audience will love your hockey stories.
Oh, yeah. Good. Yeah. So that was New Jersey kid, but I loved hockey right away. So what happened was, so the next practice, so I was a sophomore in high school, and the senior on the team comes in and goes, here, kid, read this. And he throws this book, Zen and the Art of Archery. So there it was, this kind of introduction to Zen from this athletic thing where using archery to become one with the target, or Bill Murray later on said, be the ball, so I thought, oh, wow, there's this whole system that understands what I'm saying, but is it a different culture? Is it what is it? It's not. So I started exploring it, and it led me to go on a Zen retreat. It led me to do TM. I did TM at 16 and had a kind of an opening experience, but I kept thinking, oh, I was not a kind of a follower or a true believer. So I didn't join the TM system. I just kept going well, but this is really common to everyone. And I'm seeing that it's described in Japan and India and, all these cultures. So what is it that's the common thing? What is it that can be accessed without kind of making it religious? And so that's the first thing that really kind of led me on the search.
Okay. And were psychedelics at all part of your journey?
Yes. Yeah. So psychedelics were part of it. I think actually I'll say this next story, which is more about the psychology, and then I'll talk a little about, so sophomore year in college, my father had developed brain cancer. He had a tumor. He was operated on. He started coming back to a level where he was like a first grader doing workbooks, showing them to me. And then he developed, so he was about to go back to work. He was an engineer, so he's very left brain, and it was in that kind of left brain part of his brain. And he became like this child. So he was like, come up to my girlfriend and go like, hey, Angeline. Whereas before he had been kind of more, kind of reserved. But it kind of opened him up. And then he passed away, and I was at college, and there was just nobody to talk to. So, my friends hadn't had a loss of a parent that I knew, and they just say, "Oh, just come on, have another beer or something." And then I went to the Freudian psychologist, and he just took notes, and I was like, "All right, that's not working." So I came out of the library one kind of cold winter evening, and all of a sudden I kind of was like, heard myself say, "I don't know if you can take this much longer." Because I was like very, kind of holding all this grief. And all of a sudden I looked up. I literally looked up as if I was looking for who said that. And as I did, my awareness opened up out of my head. It went up into this beautiful night sky, moved out into of my body into this kind of space that gave me this relief. And then I felt like, oh, this is bigger than me, and it's essentially me, and it was in my body. And then I just started crying and laughing and just feeling like, oh my God, what is this? How did this happen so quickly? And so it kind of gave me this sense of what is now one of the features I discovered later on in meditation, which is kind of opening awareness from the small attempt to kind of solve problems within the body, mind, and mentally and emotionally, and opening to a dimension that feels subtler, wider, deeper, higher, whatever that word is for you. But it's not dissociating. It's not leaving. It's not, leaving your body. It's really opening to a dimension that people find in meditation or through being in the zone. If you go walking in nature or play with animals or dogs or people who do sports, or you drop out of that mental center and you open to this connection to everything and connection to this subtler dimension of consciousness. So I was immediately like, whatever that is, I want to find out what that is. And I connected it to the Zen stuff, and then started, feeling like I had some connection that was meditative, but also now helped with emotions.
Hmm. So you had the spontaneous mystical experience, and now
Yes.
tell us the last piece on the psychedelic experience, and then we'll.
Yeah. So then I had, some psychedelic experiences in college that seemed to me, they were like, oh yeah, right. This is a way that just opens up as quickly to this dimension. So I would, with my friends out at the beach, we, did mushrooms, and we were out, walking, throwing frisbee, and watching all the, everything just kind of flow and melt, and just laugh and feel like completely free and connected to everything, and feel, the inner and outer worlds became the same. So there was kind of a connection, and to my friends and I felt connected, and almost like we were communicating, and it just felt like, oh, this is just kind of turning the lights up for a short period of time. But I immediately thought, okay, but I don't want, that's extreme. And that showed me, as Ram Dass said, that psychedelics are a good window, but they're not a good door. So I could see it through the window, but you can't live there. So I kept thinking, okay, so now I got it, confirmation from this, but how do you do this in everyday life that's a little turned down? So it's not closed down like I was, initially in my life, and saw most people are closed into this mental, emotional battery of a body and mind, and trying to, kind of figure it all out only with certain dimensions of consciousness. Now I said, oh, there's a whole other range of music here. And so now how do I tune into that while functioning in the world, with people in situations that are working? So I didn't, do a lot of psychedelics at that time. However, now I'm doing some retreats. I'm doing ketamine retreats.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with
Oh,
people.
wow.
So it's not public
Wow.
so much. So I'm kind of coming
Yeah,
out
sure.
publicly here.
Sure.
But they're very small. It's because they're in the U.S. and I have 2 physicians, 1 nurse,
Yeah.
three psychotherapists. So and we only do 36 people, and we
Yeah.
use non-dual my non-dual glimpse practices to set up and introduce you to your true nature and yourself, and also your parts. We use IFS therapy. Then each person who journeys has a partner that sits with them, and then we do these um, like 4-day
Mm.
journeys. And then I've also done down in Costa Rica a retreats where the middle day of a 7-day retreat, people have off, and half the group would go do psychedelics, would do mushrooms, psilocybin, and the other half wouldn't. And then at the end of that, I gave this, we can put it in it's called the Pankey Richards mystical scale. It's what they use down in Johns Hopkins to
Yeah, yeah. My
measure.
my friend Dr. Matt Johnson, a very good
Uh,
friend of mine, he's used it there. Yeah,
yeah,
he and I worked together on various projects. Yeah.
yeah. So we use that, and and the interesting thing is that people who didn't do the psychedelics score as high as people who did at the
Mm.
end, because so this is my interest. So it's like, I'm if people like and feel comfortable with psychedelics, if it's helpful, certainly to get over a certain contraction or show you something, that's great. However, let's develop these glimpse practices and this kind of protocol that doesn't use that introduces you a little more gently, but ends up in the
Yeah.
same place. So it's a
Yeah.
so I'm fascinated with both, but some people just don't want to take it, or they can't take it because of their own psychiatric history, or they're
Yeah.
afraid of it, or they like it. Whichever is
Mm.
fine, but uh, it's not necessary, but can be very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot we could talk about on
Yeah.
the psychedelic front,
Okay.
but one point on that, if you have any thoughts, is experiences with psychedelics that are more psychotherapeutic in nature
Yeah.
versus more spiritual or mystical in
Yeah.
nature. And it's interesting. I've mostly worked with MDMA,
Yeah.
with in a therapeutic setting, and a handful of the first few experiences were more of the psychotherapeutic
Yes.
realm, or flavor. When I went in wanting something more spiritual, but instead I got more, or I got kind of for the first time, like autobiographical childhood, stuff like that. Certain wounds from, bullying, school, like things like that. And then my last 2 trips on MDMA were it was me actually wanting something psychotherapeutic, like working on certain wounds, which I've been, working on in IFS therapy, which we'll talk about, and certain things related to self-esteem, self-worth, and kind of where that was kind of sculpted in childhood. I've been kind of working on that, so I wanted to get into that. This is kind of a longer story, but I'm just distilling it very briefly. But I got more of a it's time to enjoy life right now, and the
Mm-hmm.
trips were just not about going into those areas, but more about just letting go and being in the moment, and just relinquishing certain fears that were actually quite powerful, of like, what's the point of this is my last trip in the summer, of like, I was battling with this for such a long time, and then the trip before that too, of like my mind wanting to work on some of these issues, which are definitely issues to work on. I know that just kind of deep down inside, certain patterns of thinking and behavior, of trying to find validation, and working on discovering a more internal sense of self-worth, than rather than just what people think of me. And but instead, the what was kind of what my body was calling for in both experiences was just like, that's not for right now. Right now, let's just enjoy the experience. But my mind kept being like, what's the point of enjoying this MDMA experience? Because isn't life about like figuring stuff out and like
Hmm.
trying to heal and trying to optimize
Right.
and trying to heal trauma and like, but the trip wanted to take me towards just surrender and be in the moment.
Right.
And that I realized towards the end, there was just so much fear of like how can we just be when there are issues and
Right.
and they've manifested in various ways in relationships and career and whatnot. And so
That's right.
there are some knots in the psyche, in my case and in everyone's case, that need some resolution and need some
Yes.
healing.
Yeah.
But in those trips, for whatever reason, it was not calling me there and was
Right.
calling me towards, why don't we just drop that and just enjoy? And
Right.
so we're going to map this out.
Yeah. Yeah.
This exact
So
tension as it relates. This is a good kind of
yeah,
encapsulation of the meditative versus psychotherapeutic
exactly.
approaches. But if you have any thoughts on that kind of
Yeah,
experience and
that's
how that,
beautifully, beautiful description. It's really why for me the two go hand in hand is because, you know, I have groups of friends who are meditators who do know psychology, and even meditative teachers, and particularly non-dual teachers who actually just say, "Oh, that's materialism. That's not, necessary once you realize who you are." And yet, knowing them, they have problems, they act out their, if
yeah,
you, and
yeah,
so many of the spiritual teachers who have acted out is because they haven't done their psychological work.
mm,
So that's one of the main reasons. And then my
interesting,
psychology friends who just keep working on themselves all the time, and colleagues, so I call it, you can do a spiritual bypass, which many of us know, which is you
yeah,
kind of leave behind the body, mind, and psyche, and you try to do this transcending. Everything's fine. It's just everything's a movie, as they say in some non-dual circles. Like there's just pure awareness. Everything else is a movie. So
right,
it's not real. It's just illusion. Blah blah blah.
yeah,
So that doesn't look so good with when you see people trying to live that way. Then I call it the psychological underpass, which is people just do psychological work and end up never recognizing that dimension that you were talking about, which is just live life, be in the moment,
yeah,
notice that who's here is okay. And then there's like an intellectual overpass, I call it, people who get too intellectual and just try to learn all this stuff. And then there's
yeah,
a meditative cul-de-sac where you just meditate and you go into this very calm, you know, I am fine. There's no problem. There's, all things are good. And you just kind of become comfortably numb in meditation. So, so the combination, as you were saying, and it shows up in when you use both systems of non-dual meditation and parts-based psychotherapy, which IFS is one type. We'll talk about, it's not the only type. It's not, it certainly isn't the first type of that, but you see what you see is that the first sessions, parts, wounds, exiles, shadow parts need to be worked on, healed, inner children come up, but then the second, it's like, no, there's some dimension of you that's okay. You don't have to just work on yourself all the time,
mm,
because nobody ever finishes working on themselves psychologically.
yeah,
Nobody ever
yeah,
psychologically is clean. You can't do it. It's just there's
yeah,
always triggers. The system just on the biological system is going to jump when you know something happens, and there's some pre-conscious, pre-verbal stuff that you don't get to, and yet you can be completely happy for no reason and do the work that's necessary
yeah.
rather than avoiding it. So that's what I'm hearing from you. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 and this is so beautiful. And I'm so you're really the perfect guest to talk to about this, um, because you see so many people in life. I mean, this is true everywhere, who are really good specialists in one area,
Yeah.
and don't understand other things. I'm thinking of other tangential, unrelated examples to this, like things that I kind of saw during COVID. Like there's people like kind of scientists who might be really good in one area
Mm-hmm.
but might not know much about, say, economics, and so they might advocate for a certain policy position or a certain view that's based on science, a very narrow but important field like immunology or virology or vaccinology. But if it's untethered from, say, economics, untethered from social behavior, social psychology, or like how children behave, and like just all kinds of things, then you end up with this very unbalanced perspective that has a lot of ramifications, and so it's important to kind of integrate different
Yes,
fields. And
that's right.
so bring this back to our conversation. I see this a lot, as you already alluded to, of correctly, the spiritual bypass um, folks who they're really interested in meditation, and maybe not even non-duality, but just kind of vipassana,
Mhm.
mindfulness,
Yeah.
and they may have some very positive or even blissful or transcendental experiences with meditation,
Mhm.
that are really powerful, but they might return to normal waking consciousness, which is already kind of a problem that kind of non-duality kind of cuts through. But they kind of
Mhm.
return back to their normal state, and a lot of the fears and anxieties that they were temporarily alleviated from come right back.
Yes.
And it's just, this is just something that I've mapped out in myself. I don't even have to talk about anyone else, for
Yeah.
that matter. But what I've seen, and I'm going to do a couple of essays on this on my
Okay.
Meta Mystic Substack, about just for me, and I wrote about this in my notes as well. I became very interested in meditation right after high school, 2019,
Mhm.
2020, and got into Sam Harris's work, the Waking Up app, started meditating. And I guess I'm kind of feeling kind of comfortable to share a little bit more about myself than I would have otherwise planned for this podcast. But I think this is useful and really will help enrich the conversation. I was practicing non-dual meditation for about a year, although I would say, um, you know, thinking I'm doing non-dual meditation, but in retrospect, probably just very introductory mindfulness,
Mhm.
in retrospect, and not actually cutting through the self in any meaningful way. Although, it takes time, right? But
Yes.
I remember just having built up a lot of good meditative practice, I'd say. But then I had this episode with this one. Let's just say it was this pretty, felt very emotionally catastrophic breakup with this one girl that I was
Mhm.
seeing, and that just threw me for a utter, just disastrous, just life deranging kind of moment, this like tornado in my mental space, just not being able to cope with it, and just so much emotion and attachment, and trying to make things work. And it just like occurred to me that um I needed to look for some other tools apart from meditation.
Mhm.
Although one caveat I would draw there, based on my conversation with Sam Harris in 2021, is I hadn't done a prolonged meditation retreat, and so Sam recommended to me that, based on his experience, that and I did a conversation with him. It's available on my Substack in written form. He was saying that it's hard to have breakthroughs, or really cutting through the self, without a prolonged retreat. Right, in 10-minute, 20-minute chunks, it's hard, and I believe that. I think there's definitely something to that. That it might be harder when you're just doing 10 or 20 minutes a day, and then
Mhm.
going back to your social media and your chaotic life. I think longer sessions really are helpful.
Yeah.
But I started to look for more tools, and then I got interested in psychedelics and psychotherapy, and started listening to other people like Gabor Mate,
Mhm.
Jordan Peterson talk about the role of psychotherapy, and how our inner narratives like shape our reality, shape our consciousness, and how we interface with reality. And that really was just kind of the next evolution of my inner journey, was then getting into psychotherapy. And I'm going to map some of this out, maybe in a little bit, of just kind of what that's been like. But I get the sense that both of those uh, pathways um, are important, because meditation doesn't tell you, or meditation doesn't teach you what to replace your existing belief structures or thoughts with. I think that's one crucial point. If you agree with that, like
Yeah. I
meditation,
mean.
like we all have these rigid toxic thought
Mhm.
patterns, which psychedelics can disrupt those thought patterns,
Yeah.
or psychotherapy can break that apart. But like, what do you replace that with? And like, you won't get building a healthy self-worth just from mindfulness or non-duality. Like
Right.
I don't see any like direct connection. Now, I think you'll probably give a case for why
Right.
those two do gel together, but you don't get one from the other. And so I think it's important to kind of look at both.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a relationship between the two, and my version of non-duality does kind of continue even from traditional non-duality, which can stop at no self or headlessness or absence of self, seeing through the self. In the tradition I'm in, that's still halfway there. That's not even halfway there. So then once you realize that this changing consciousness is not solid and it's not the center, you get to this, absence, or it's not the center, not self. But then you have to recognize the awake awareness, the awareness that is the intelligence prior to thought. And then you recognize what's called same taste, which is that the awareness and the personality and the psyche are not two. And that actually is the non-dual of Buddhism, that and Mahamudra Buddhism, that isn't even talked about sometimes in Dzogchen style, or what's called non-duality in some traditions. So when that becomes embodied and then starts to see that everything that's arising is not other, it's not wrong, it's not bad, but it will keep being pleasant and unpleasant because we're in a human body, but there's a kind of a core view of it while it's kind of detoxing or clearing out or healing. The psyche and the body need to go through a process of almost, repairing from the first attempt by the ego personality of repressing negative emotions or trying to mentally change them or creating a persona. So that's got to open up. And then the key is for both psychology and meditation, what is, as you say, what is the healing agent? Who or what is it? It's not just no self. It's actually this nature of mind, or self with a capital S, that is awareness-based clarity, that then isn't just a detached witness that's out here in the sky looking down, but is this ocean and wave, is this awareness that's arising as pleasant and unpleasant, and parts of us that have kind of formed because they thought they were me at 4 years old and at 7 years old, and at, as a manager, that I need to get through life by being successful. And then another part's like, I'll never be successful. Everything is, I'm worthless, and this proves it. That right. Proves it. No, you don't listen to that part of me, So we've created this psychology of kind of overpowering our body. And what we're doing is upgrading to, really the question is, who or what is all of this occurring to? So that's where the non-dual Mahamudra style meditation and psychology come together. And that's where IFS has the same, what they call self, that isn't a part of us, but isn't other than the parts of us. It's inherent within, it's embracing, but it's not taken over by the grieving or angry or worried parts. The worried part arises, then we say, are you aware that there's a worried part? Yes. Can you give it some space? And now, are you aware there's another part of you that's not worried? Oh yeah. Okay, well, who's aware of both those parts? So you start to, that who or what becomes the advanced non-duality, becomes and it's where it actually comes back to be embodied.
Yeah, and you're talking about consciousness or pure awareness,
right?
Witness consciousness, like that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, that pure awareness, or what anyone can just discover if the in between each thought. If you're just like, oh, I'm having thoughts. Once you realize you're not looking from thought, you're looking at thought, which is the what you learn in insight meditation. But then you say, oh, wow. But now you look back. Okay, so what is then aware of the thought and what's aware of the space between the thought? And when you look, you won't find a thing or a personality or psyche. It's odd, but it's just this alertness. It's just being
Yeah.
alert. It's not even like fancy words like consciousness. It's just like you're alert.
Yeah.
But what is that? What is that? That feels like awareness. It's just aware. I'm just aware. But that is like, okay, but that seems like I am aware of a thought or a lamp. But it's like as if awareness is in the middle. But it's actually, no, awareness is aware of the thought or the personality. And once that
Right.
becomes primary and you start to feel that, you realize, oh, but that awareness can't be hurt. And that this awareness isn't worried. And now, as everything arises, worry and fear and anger, it arises to this embracing sky. So it's the same concept in IFS as it is in this advanced non-dual Mahamudra style awareness. Yeah.
I'm going to take just a quick detour, add
Okay.
one other piece rather than going into the next question, which I do want to get to, which is like when you've identified some of these pieces here to the consciousness and psyche, how do you, is there a place you would pinpoint roughly where we use the word, say, agency or free will is more loaded? But this is a longer conversation I won't necessarily get into per se, although I am curious about your thoughts on that. But
yeah,
for me, let's just say in the last few years, it's been really important to discover a sense of agency.
yes,
And I will say I love Sam. I love his teachings. The anti-free will stuff has been, I would say, psychologically very, I'd say, toxic and painful in some ways, actually, and just kind of making sense of that. And maybe that's partly in the stage of life that I'm in, young and want to do stuff and get out there, but also on a scientific level. I'll table this maybe for my good friend of mine, Bob Yazarian. He's a neuroscientist. He's laid the case for free will from a neuroscientific and philosophical perspective, and kind of went through and refuted some of Sam's positions on free will, which I've found to be very compelling. But just at bare minimum, just on like the psychology front, I mean, I don't know if you want to briefly say your position on that, but yeah.
So it's very similar, free will and pure awareness. Ultimately, there's pure awareness. Relatively, that's not all there is. Ultimately, there may be no free will. Relatively, there is. So in other words, so something in between, and that area can't be known. There's some kind of something beyond thought and beyond understanding of where the origin is. So it's almost like, the nature of the universe, or, what was there before the Big Bang, or what's there before you make a choice. Right. You kind of don't know, but that when you operate from this more awareness-based intelligence, you have intentionality. There's intentionality and there's choice. And, it's a different one that's choosing and deciding than one of your parts that's battling it out, or the one who thinks there is no free will. So the experience of choosing is a human, and it needs to be refined and found out where's the higher choice of how to make a decision from somewhere.
Do you like to use the word agency? Does that kind of...
Yeah, no, I like agency is good. Agency is a good philosophical word. There's an agency, or I use intentionality. There's that awake consciousness has intentionality. So in other words, it has ability to intend to do something, or it can, it can move. There's movement. It's almost like the feeling of it, though, can feel like you're choosing, but then you're beyond choice. In other words, so again, where I go with this living from non-dual with this parts-based psychology is what I call awake loving flow. So it's like flow consciousness. So if you're like doing an extreme sport and you're like choosing, all right, I'm going to ski down these trees, between all these trees, you make that choice. But as soon as you go, you're not choosing anymore. You're beyond mental choosing. You're trusting that something faster than thought is deciding left or right. You're just going whoosh, 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 whoosh. And it feels like, oh, wait, there's no will. it just happened. So the feeling is almost beyond will, but it's, there's this kind of paradoxical dialogue, and certainly you have to choose, in order to live, you have to make intentional choices. So from your highest good, there's, just like the other day, there was like, oh, this person, there was this situation where this app, I was still on this app where I had stopped this ability to get something for free, and then, but it was still working, so I could have done it. And then I was just like, oh, but I could do it, and they won't really mind. And then one person, and then I was like, no, I went to, I was like, no, it's just do the right thing. Just it's not, your membership's done. So just don't do it. You're going to feel better.
Yeah.
Just like that. It's just like, oh, but a part of me is like, oh, but no one will really mind. Like, no, okay. Yeah. So it's not like you become like this saint. You still have parts come up. You don't become like, oh, it's obvious that things need to be done according to the, nature of reality. It's like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I'll just say again from personal experience, for whatever that's worth, being fully convinced on the determinism side, or determinism plus randomness, and therefore no free will side, psychologically has been fairly unhealthy, and still something kind of that I've battled with. Like it just kind of removes a sense of like control, and kind of fosters or encourages a sense of complacency, or kind of scattered. Okay, there's no self, things are just happening, there's no control, and so just less of a agentic, like, okay, this is the decision I'm going to make today. I'm going to get up today. I'm going to get my morning sunlight. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That is more of an agency sense.
And the other extreme on the like, the extreme manifestors is like, well, if you make a picture board and you choose that you're going to manifest a house and a car, then, you'll be able to, it will happen. It's like, well, it kind of sometimes works out, sometimes doesn't. There's a lot of factors going on. The interesting thing in terms of the, one of the sayings in Dzogchen is proceed with confidence in the spontaneous unfolding. So there's the paradox, right? So proceed with confidence. So don't just proceed randomly. No, proceed with confidence in the spontaneous unfolding. So it's like you're riding a river. So you're always choosing a little bit, but you're not totally in control. So you have to be ready. Like that didn't work. That didn't work out so good, So have to pivot.
Yeah, it just occurs to me the saying like free will is an illusion, it's not real. Like that feels just like a very crude, reductionistic perspective.
Exactly.
When there's a lot of mystery going on, and there's
there are
factors. Yeah, there are things beyond our control. Things from childhood. There's genetics, biology, environment,
determinant,
social media, and all these things. But there is something to agency. There is something to freedom.
For sure.
I think it's important to be kind of responsible with that. I feel like that believing there's no free will has caused some psychological impairments for me.
It's I could see that. It can't be a literal thing. And it's funny. It's like the experience, having heard many people have had kind of a more stable awakening. It's like you wake up and you feel like, oh, I can do anything today. And, it's all going to be okay, but I'm going to choose, what do I want to do? I don't know. I could do anything. Well, but there's door number 1 and door number 2. So let's go through door number 1. And you're like, oh, now I see different things. Oh, let's go to the right, and you just keep choosing and things change, so there's a kind of engagement with life, the human willingness to not get stuck in your head or not get stuck in, a philosophical position, but to kind of be like a child on, first day of summer vacation. You like get up and you're like, let's go. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to choose the best thing. And there's kind of the psychology, like the situation I described, is there's to be willing to realize that humility, integrity, honesty, responsibility is more important than like winning and achieving, making, doing something to be selfish, or you just start to realize it'll all work out. And but you balance, but you want to have food, clothing, shelter, and be successful and make it work out. But you kind of feel your whole system wants to be right, wants to be true. And then what helps is you see parts of you that are like a teenager. Forget them, man, just do what's right for you. They don't care about you, and then you're like, oh, there's a part.
Right. Yeah. And just one more thing on the kind of agency side of things, like the experience that really strongly seemed to kind of confirm what Sam has said on the free will front is this real experience of thoughts kind of coming out of nowhere and just emerging spontaneously. Can you hear me, by the way? Am I good still?
Yeah.
Yeah. But just this experience of thoughts kind of just coming up and like, whoa, where did that memory come from? And where this memory of watching the soccer games just came up in this song that I haven't heard of in 20 years. And did I really like consciously author that? And that's where it's like, oh, okay, then, there is no free will. It's all deterministic or whatever, random. But that's where my friend Bob, I mean, I'm curious your thoughts on this, but my friend Bobby's been very good at kind of differentiating different layers of our mind. And there is an unconscious layer. And Bobby, he says it brilliantly. He says, treat your unconscious mind like a wizard. Like it can, give you these things. Because a few times I was like, I had like a brilliant idea, and it just like came to me, and it was like, wait, hold on, did I really like author that? And like, how does this jive with the whole self-worth, self-love thing? Like, how can there be any sense of like feeling proud of achievements if all of the things that I've done that are good just came out of nowhere without, my
Right.
authorship, like all that chaos just comes into picture. But my friend Bobby, he says, like, just like our unconscious mind can give us, very negative things, let's say, the anxieties, the fears, all the trauma. There's also the positive side. You get a creative insight or spiritual insight. And then there's what he describes like kind of higher level agency. And there's like, what do you do with that? And like, there's a kind of a top down, you enforce and instill certain thought patterns, beliefs about self.
Right.
And you do that consciously. You don't do that unconsciously. You do very, very intentionally and consciously, kind of with agency or free will. And then then you'll have these moments too where you're just driving, and then you'll just have like an insight of like, I am worthy, or like, this situation with this person is actually not my fault, and that's a really good reminder. Now that's going to save me the next 5 hours of anxiety. And it's like, well, where did that come from? Well, it's like I instilled this sense of self-worth and healthy thinking earlier in this therapy session, and now it allows for more spontaneous unfolding of thoughts and ideas that are more conducive than the previous unconscious ideas of I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate, it's my fault, I'm the does that make sense?
Yeah. So that it's kind of, that's important, like foundational work for working with the relative psyche and conscious, unconscious, positive thinking. But then in this form of non-duality and IFS, you really want to see that even positive thinking is just a polarized part to negative thinking. So ultimately, it's just a relative part that's trying to do battle and overcome the negative thought. But it's only by upgrading with, I think you said that he was mentioning higher thought or something. So you have to go higher or deeper or subtler. You don't have to go to this dimension, which already knows you're okay, and which knows that like negative thinking and positive thinking is the nature. You're not going to get beyond either because they're always polarized. There's always positive and negative within the dualistic mind, which is one of the reasons the word dualism is used. And it's not dualistic, because this is the nature of positive, negative. Should I do this or that? What about this? This has pros, this has cons. Like that's the nature of, the survival mechanism of the body and mind. It's always trying to figure it out through comparing and contrasting. That's always compare and contrast, left to right, good or bad, right, up or down. So then you go to this mind. So I'll give you an example. So I had long COVID during, a couple of years ago. And so I had brain fog, but I kept teaching. And I was like, what am I going to talk about today? And I was like, I can't even think about it. Okay, push the button and start the teaching. And I was like, okay, just got to trust. It's all going to come out. And all of a sudden, I just start teaching and I'm like, this is pretty good. I don't know what I'm about to say next, but it's working out okay. Yeah. So there's some organization that by taking the intention, proceed with confidence in the higher mind, having the intentional lead to coordinate all of the relative practices, but getting to that self or that, and not just staying at the relative level, or with meditation, people who just do the calming shamatha practice, or just the first stage of insight that there isn't a self. There's a scientist, Willoughby Britton at Brown, who did a study on groups of people who did their first 5-day retreats. And so they went through classical calming and then insight meditation, 4 foundations of mindfulness. So you see that, those are just thoughts, they're changing, anicca, then there's no self there. They deconstructed that. And that's kind of the insight. And 40% of them got flooded by their unconscious and had a terrible time, because they weren't introduced to the solution to what you were saying before, like what's next? Once you deconstruct this and you're not this self and you have no will, then where am I operating from? Where's the new operating system? So that's why in the retreats that are more Mahamudra style, you start with similar calming practices, but then you almost introduce the solution first. And same in IFS, you recognize, are you aware that this is a part of you that's anxious? Yes. Can you ask it from some space? Now, how do you feel toward this from this awareness position? And do you feel, and then you actually have these positive qualities. So it's not like a mindful, non-judgmental, neutral witness. There's actually this self energy, which is from a greater dimension of you that's not a part of you. So that consciousness that is the most advanced consciousness is why I like IFS, because people can be introduced to have complex trauma, can be introduced to the nature of mind, which is the highest, or the pure awareness, or the their true authentic self in an hour. And it's what heals.
Right.
So, and then doing that relative, because otherwise the trauma, most people's trauma is bigger than their ego. In other words, you can do psychology forever, but you're going to keep getting kind of only deal with this so much today. Now I'll come back next week, and deal with a little more, and now I'll come back next week. And then, it pops up during the week, and because there's no that small self, which is trying hard to live this life, is not strong enough. It's to bear the full emotional life of a human being, because that's stronger. It's like a storm cloud. It's just too big. It needs the sky. So the metaphor of this is, you're trying to clean up this storm cloud and it just keeps getting overwhelming. So you have to step out into the sky realize you're the sky, be aware as the sky, from the sky, and now the key move in this Mahamudra style is, and the sky is within the cloud and arising as the cloud. So now you're not bypassing, you've come back in a different kind of embodiment that can be with. So anything that's, upsetting and really big rage, fear is just like, okay, it's like a loving sky. Okay, I'm with you. You can't hurt me. Sky can't be hurt. Storm, 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 or you feel like a an ocean with big waves. They're going to crash. Yep, right back into the ocean. Yeah, and it's just like,
Yeah.
so those are the kind of metaphors that are simple to show how,
Yeah.
this really needs to kind of upgrade.
Yeah, yeah. I have a lot of questions from what you said. Let's try to go through this systematically, and
Okay,
maybe this could also be a good juncture after I ask a couple of these questions to maybe go into a practice, perhaps
sure.
actually.
Yeah.
But like when you said, like, and just for the record, I didn't set this up yet, but I have done IFS psychotherapy for a couple of years. Although, as a friend kind of pointed out to me, not super structured IFS, but kind of IFS flavored, but kind of
Yeah.
IFS flavored kind of talk therapy. I'm interested now to actually go more into uh, focused IFS, as a friend just suggested, and kind of understanding some of the metaphors more, and the exiles firefighter stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not actually super familiar with yet. But that example that you gave, you have a part maybe that's anxious, and so
Mm-hmm.
just for people, if this is confusing at all, like it's actually kind of very simple, just the basic
Yeah.
language here. When we just say parts, like it's just like pieces within us that like get activated or get kind of scratched by certain things, and there's certain kind of patterns that we have.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it could be fear or like desperation, like trying really hard. For some other people that I know, it's anger is like the big one that really comes up, or a sense of grief might come up. And so we have these different parts within us that kind of uh, you could say predictably get activated in often social situations with other people, just colliding with
Yeah.
life in various ways, and it can activate those inner parts, and which suggests that
Yeah.
they need some healing.
Yeah. So I'll just
Um,
give
sure. Okay.
a
Yeah.
little macro, just because.
Yeah.
So there's the history of psychotherapy is really a parts based system. If you even start with Freud and Jung, but the common psychology of everyday cultures is, oh, I'm a person and I have feelings. So, I'm the one who's sitting in this seat in the middle of my head, and now I'm worried, and now I feel angry, and now I feel like, oh no, I shouldn't say that to the person. No, I want to say that to the person. That's me. So this inner dialogue or being of two minds is me, the person. I'm a ego or a self that has feelings. But even with Freud, he had id, ego, and superego, and he thought of them as billiard balls, so that the ego would get knocked out of the center and the superego would take over, and then the id would knock the superego out, and you're trying to get the ego back into the center. And then Jung talked about personas and the anima and the animus, kind of the masculine, feminine parts of us that would dialogue. And then he would talk about, um, these masks, persona as masks that would come on when you were the friend, and then you were at work, and then you were, you know, the son or the, child, and then you were debating within yourself. You would have different personas talking to each other. So,
Yeah.
and then Gestalt became
Yeah.
this. You would
And by the way,
actually, yeah.
one thing about the I've been getting deep into Carl Jung's theory on
Oh yeah.
integrating the anima
Yes.
as the particular for young men, and how that's important
Yes.
to kind of avoid certain trappings of relationships, and romantic engagements. How it's crucial for one to integrate one's inner feminine part, which is known as the anima, to avoid
Right.
some of those very predictable pitfalls that young men face.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's we won't get into the social part of it, but
Yeah,
with some of the model of masculinity today, as if you should be very
yeah,
masculine, you're rejecting your fullness, and then you get in these relationships with, that end up being extreme and don't work out as for your full self. So really the Jungian work around that is really so important. And
Maybe
then
maybe we should have maybe you should take Andrew Tate as your new client.
right, that's right. Yeah, that kind of
That'd be
yeah,
a piece of work for you.
or Hegseth or someone like
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So then Gestalt, which became kind of the 60s version as we went to psychosynthesis and voice dialogue. And so I'm just naming these things. You don't need to know what they are, but it would actually take a part and put it in a chair. Say, okay, well, you ask that part of you to sit in the chair and you have a dialogue with it. So it would externalize these parts. So it's like, well, take the part that feels, worthless. And can you ask that part if it would sit there, and can you now ask it why it feels worthless? So you would literally separate out this. So all that to say that this is not, kind of some strange new theory that IFS have. They emphasize that ultimately the dimension that is aware of the parts is similar to what meditative consciousness has been describing, and they call it similar to the Advaita, the Hindu self with a capital S, as opposed to ego manager, small self. So it's not just that you're not the small self or the ego, but that you immediately are this more loving, and that it has these qualities of compassion, clarity, courage, and courage has a ability to have intentionality. It's to move and act in the world, to choose.
Yeah. I appreciate you laying out this macro picture here. So the question I was going to ask you before is like when you say you gave the example, I think of an anxious part, and then like asking the anxious part or from the self,
Yeah.
what the self feels toward the anxious part. And so this is something that I've done in psychotherapy. Like a fearful part or a desperate part, and like looking at it and like what do I feel about it. So, and you said that's not the neutral, non-judgmental
Right.
Observer, pure consciousness self. So then what is that? What is that self? And is that more of a, so that is more of a character? Like that's not, so that's not the non-dual pure consciousness?
Well, see, this is the thing, is there's if, as I break down, and, would be the next dialogue to have with Sam or someone like that, is that it doesn't stop just at, I'm a self trying to, work with my feelings and emotions, and I'm not. Then in meditation, you step up into a mindful witness. Oh, now I'm outside and I'm looking at thoughts, feelings, and sensations coming and going. So now, if you then look back behind the mindful witness, or open up to see what's aware of the mindful witness, you get to this pure awareness, or more spacious awareness. But then does it remain as witness consciousness, which is outside looking in, still looking this way, or it's what's called same taste? Is the awareness and the aliveness actually not two? So is there a kind of a interconnected or interdependent experience, which is what people have sometimes on psychedelics? They feel this, interconnection or oneness, which is not a oneness like I am the, I feel there's a interconnection. So even the word emptiness, which is used in Buddhism, means empty of a separate self. So, for instance, everything is, there's no thing that's a separate thing. So a tree, there's no such thing as a tree, because a tree is dependent on water, earth, air,
Soil, yeah.
sunlight. So
Yeah.
empty means interdependent. It doesn't mean no self. So that's where there's confusion is. No will, no self, no, interdependent. Like keep going to this awareness that's interconnected with everything so that you can still have an anxious part and you can still have a part that's not anxious. And who's aware of both of them? Oh, well, I am. And how do you feel toward this anxious part? Not trying to make it stop, not trying to repress it, not trying to, what often is done in cognitive behavior, oh, it's just thought, or just try to create a positive thought. It's like, no, let this part, which is like how you felt as a kid that you weren't allowed to feel, like just be with it and just listen to it, because now you're big enough and loving enough to be with it yourself. And it can go like, yeah, well, I don't feel so, I'm a little scared, this isn't going to work out. And you're like, okay, I understand that. That makes sense to me, but I'm here. And why don't we do this together and see how it works out?
Mm. And but that's not the pure consciousness though. Like I'm watching
Well,
this.
what it does is
Not non-judgmental. It
well,
is judgmental in a
yes.
positive sense.
So both the mindful witness is non-judgmental and insightful, and then the pure awareness is unplugged from any experience. But that's only halfway there. So a lot of people are trying to like, let's get to that and hang out as that or have longer meditations. But what I say is that you only need to be there 3 seconds to 3 minutes. You're just unplugging from conditioning and recognizing the pure awareness is foundational. But then as soon as you look back, you don't look back from a witness, you connect. Oh, so the awareness is rising as a sensation, a vibration, a thought, a feeling, my body, and the room.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So let's do a little glimpse
Let's
here.
do let's
Okay.
and full disclosure, it's actually been some time since I've done your meditations, and
Okay.
life is taken some fun turns.
Yeah. So this is
yeah.
just a very short one that has a kind of an IFS feel to it, and it's one that is not so emotional. So we don't have to worry about people who are doing it. So what we're going to start with is actually,
and actually, before you get into that, just so
Sure.
we just like clarify, like the terms, we want to be clear what we're talking about. So you use mindful witness, right? That's the non-judgmental, neutral awareness.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you use, what's the other term you use?
Then you go to pure awareness, and then you go to what's called same taste or unity mind, or this interconnection, feeling of interconnected, embodied. And then you go to kind of true nature or heart mind, or the ability to be in awake, loving flow. So now your foundation is the awareness, but it's mixed with the aliveness, and it's inherent within the parts that are still suffering. So within those parts, they have self, this true nature in them, and they're being embraced by this something greater than them. So even though they're like a kindergarten, your body is like a little kindergarten, throwing tantrums, running around, doing you're the kindergarten teacher, and you're like, okay, kids, I see you. It's okay. No one's dying here today. We're all just have a lot of energy after we had our milk and cookies. So we're going to take our nap soon. So settle down a little and let's talk about what's going on. So that's the feeling of a authentic self, is like it's actually called child awareness and mother awareness in some traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. So that I call it grandmother, or nursery school teacher, kindergarten teacher. So
sorry, you're calling the true nature or heart mind, you're calling that authentic self?
Yeah. So that's authentic self or self-leadership. They call self-leadership in um, in IFS. There is the parts-based view, and then self-essence is the pure awareness, and then self-energy is when the awareness and has qualities of compassion and caring. So the key is it's not a part that feels positive. The the feeling you'll feel if we do this exercise, you'll feel this kind of almost um, it's the feeling you have when you're feeling good and you do the thing you love, like going into nature, walking in the woods, walking your dogs, playing, sport or running, like doing exercise in a place that you love, where you feel like if you look back, if you'd ever looked back when you feel that way, like you walk up to the top of a mountain, you take a hike with some friends, you get to the top, you kind of look out over the vista, you feel your friends are there, and you just feel this like, oh wow, this is so great. It isn't the place. It isn't about the place is nice, but it's a doorway for you to drop out of your striving mind. You've reached your pinnacle, you've reached your goal. You can let go of the problem or the search, and you drop into this natural, interconnected, awake, loving flow that is who we are essentially. So this is where we're going to see if you can feel it. So it's not a attitude or a thought or a personality trait. It's this essential what's called nature of mind or authentic self, or and the key is it's inherent within us. And what gets in the way is just this habit of operating from this dimension of our self, called ego manager or small self, that's trying to just keep us safe and survive because it's a habit. We think that's the only option we have. So if this one that's scanning for danger and trying to solve the problem in here and trying to solve the problem out there, we treat it with good intention. So we're not trying to get rid of it or say it doesn't exist. So that's another big thing. We're saying, could you just relax and step aside and be part of the team? Because we need you to help with functioning. But there's a new leader here that's more this self essence and self energy that can make the choices and listen to you, and you have information. We'll all work together. So this is an immediate difference than the non-dual no self. It's saying that ego that's in the middle, just it's exhausted. It needs to relax and semi-retire, and just let it be part of the team, and just soften back and open and discover, as you said before. But we got to discover who's in charge or who's leading, and that is a different feeling. That's this awareness with these kind of essential qualities that you felt when you're at your best, but you didn't know that it wasn't your personality, even though you can start to distinguish it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. One thing actually I'll mention before we get into some of the questions. When you described the hike, that reminded me of how, for me, going to raves or concerts, using that for spiritual practice or instilling or practicing meditative inquiry, like being at a rave even a few days ago, and this a great electronic music artist called Fred again, and just like him just playing this incredible, vibrant, eccentric music, and just like listening and just like using that very consciously and deliberately to look back within of is there something to see here that's not just about the music? Like, what can the music, this wonderful electronic music, can this point me to something inside that transcends the music and the atmosphere itself? And like, and what is that? And that's not an easy process. And I can't say I've succeeded in any like substantial way, but there is this, if I kind of go back there is this sense of like, this sense of like tranquility or just kind of beingness, just like being there. The sense of like nothing has to be improved.
Yes, that's it.
In that moment, like there's no, you do this meditation, no problem to solve, which
That's
is just so just chef's kiss. I love that. It's such a powerful antidote to how we normally think, which is we're problem solvers. How do you make more money? How do I improve my mental health? How do I improve my physical health? How do I, improve my social life? But there's no problem to solve feeling that you work through.
So we'll do that. We'll do
in your meditation, using that in a moment like a concert or musical performance is really quite powerful and kind of spiritually enriching. So I recommend people use such experiences. I'm curious. I don't know if you use those particular kind of venues for that.
Yes.
But
I actually go. I go now. I did rave in the traditional way, but now I go and I call it sober rave. So in other words, I don't take anything, and everyone's looking at
really,
and so I'm like trance dancing, and everyone thinks like, oh, he must be on MDMA or something, but you just let go and get into the music carries you, which is similar to psychedelics, right? Because in psychedelics there's usually music playing. But you just let go, and it's similar to entering a flow consciousness because you're moving, and you're intentionally, not falling down, and you're not just sitting quietly with your eyes closed. So, so let's do this one. So we'll do the one. No problem to solve.
Before we get into it, so like
let's do that.
I made this diagram here based on what you said. So so just want to make sure I got this right. The ego.
Yeah.
Mindful witness is the other layer, and then the pure awareness is we're peeling back layers. Then the unity mind,
yes,
and then at the highest level you have the true nature or authentic self.
Yeah. So here's the difference though. It goes like this. It goes like ego, and then it goes mindful witness, and then you have to you're not. If you pull back, you're in witness consciousness. So you pull back, you're in this pure awareness witness. But so what you have to do is you have to look back through. That opens up.
This is so complicated.
No, but it's not complicated. It's the magic move. So the term, the Tibetan phrase for recognizing your true nature is translated as look back at your own face. So it's this strange move where you, and it's what happens in a rave, is you pop the bubble of the witness. You just go like, oh, right. And it's what happened to me as I described early on when I looked back coming out of the library and that voice said, I don't know if you can take this much longer. I looked like, well, where's that voice? Oh, there's nothing there. And it just went up into the sky. And it's the same move that you make. Oh, are you aware in IFS? Are you aware of a part in you? Yes. Where's that anxious part? Oh, it's right here. Okay, can you ask that part for some space? And now are you aware of the part? And now are you aware of the self that's aware of it? As soon as you're aware of the self, it has no location. But it feels like, as you say, being. It just feels like being. Because once you open up, then the unity mind comes back. So you open up to the space, and then unity mind is back in. So it doesn't pull back. The camera doesn't pull back. The camera opens up and then returns. So Ken Wilber says, transcend and include. So those are the moves. Transcend, but include. That's non-duality. It's not transcendence only. And that's,
Yeah. And just to close the loop on the rave thing, but so you, I just find this interesting. You started raving like later in life, like more recently, you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I did it back in the day too, when the first raves,
okay.
The original raves were in my era. Yeah. But now, cool, but now I've done it. Yeah. I just did it, and we do kind of during retreats, we always have dance parties, and I call it trance dance, but it's basically a rave. or so sometimes I say like a sober rave, let's go, and then we just start playing it, and you just let go, and everyone's like, woo, because
Yeah.
that's part of the retreat. So the type of retreat I do isn't people can talk, we have dyads, we have movement, we have, it's, and then quiet meditation for a certain amount of time, and then integrate it into your life, and then come back and integrate it. Now talk to each other from there. Now go to lunch, so it's a Tibetan style kind of, not all silent.
Mm. And when you're at a rave, is there a prompt you use, like when you're dancing? Like, because for me, a prompt is important, because
Okay.
for why, if I'm dancing or like doing anything, like thoughts can very quickly come up, and then like, oh my god, there's a great song playing, but I just spent 1 minute kind of thinking about
Right.
this
Right.
thing tomorrow. Like, what the fuck just happened there? So like, is for me, like a prompt can be useful.
So what prompt do you use?
I use the prompt of, is there something to witness here?
Okay, that's
Is
good.
there something to see here? And then your prompt, actually, which is no problem to solve.
Yeah.
And
What's here when
like
there's no problem to solve?
yeah, and like what's the, this is more existential, like
Yeah.
sense of like, what is it, we're like is there a time
Is
where
there
we can just not try to solve?
is there dancing without a dancer?
Hmm. Is there dancing without a dancer? Interesting.
Without someone trying to dance? Is there
Hmm.
dancing without someone trying to dance?
Right. And also another one that I've used at the Weekend concert and the Fred again was like, can this experience get better?
Okay, that's good too. Yeah, I like that.
Can this, so like, amazing music's playing, dun dun dun, and then you're just like
Right.
listening, it's like a great time, amazing lights, maybe you're with your friends, maybe you're not, but like, can this experience get better? And the just the reflexive, maybe kind of egocentric response to that is, without getting into details, but just like reasons how this experience could get better, and like certain missing pieces in one's life might come
Right.
up. For me, they do immediately, like, oh, if I had this person by my side,
Right.
or if this thing were working in my life, then it would be better. But then just kind of probing that, kind of like is that really true? Like, if
Yeah.
if you had that other thing, would that actually make the experience better?
Right. That's right.
Right.
Yeah. So that literally, that's one of the best trails to follow, and we'll do it at the end of this glimpse. So that when you boil down what is suffering, okay, so what is the existential root of suffering? So on the psyche level, there's all these personal things that happen, and events in your life that caused relative trauma or suffering, small t trauma, big T trauma. They call, this. So you have like, oh, I don't like that. I got, bullied. I got, this happened, that happened. But on the level of where the personality or the psyche meets the 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 unity mind, or the uh, true nature, is there anything that needs to be gotten rid of, or is there anything that needs to be added for everything to be okay? That's it. Those are the two things: pushing away or adding something I'm longing for that's missing. So the root word dukkha for suffering is a feeling of perpetual dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
And the dissatisfaction, the simplest first movement of it is a little bit pleasant, unpleasant, but then it's longing or craving and rejecting. So if you just stay with that right there, you go like, okay, is there anything that needs to be gotten rid of? Anything needed to be added to be okay? And then what it does, you'll go through the psyche, like, well, that's true, I could have this, but then you sink deeper, subtler into the now
Mm.
and into your true nature. And if you sink to your true nature, you'll see always there's nothing to be improved.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, that's so beautiful, and most people never witness that.
That's right. But you see how, so this is good. This is exactly what you led us to with the rave and your question and this thing. Really, no.
Yeah.
But this is like, this makes it simple and sums it up and is the whole thing. It is really like it's not that, it's not this esoteric non-duality, someday I'll get this. No, it's already here. It's right. It's this meeting place of the relative level, which doesn't need to be denied. So like, for instance, this is the relative path, and Buddha started with, and asceticism, right? So he did super asceticism when he did yoga. Then he finally ate some rice, and he remembered, what he remembered was sitting under a tree on a summer day when he didn't have to go to school. And because he was just sitting there and there was nothing to do and no problem to solve, he recognized his true nature. So he said at that time, after all this asceticism, could it be that simple? Was that it? So then he went and sat under a tree. But then the point I'm actually making is, and he recognized that again. It took him a little longer this time. But then he started monasteries where they denied, where they did asceticism and renunciation, as if you have to renounce family, money, work, sexuality, and even wanting, desiring anything, but that's not it. And then the tantric people go to the other extreme. They go to the graveyard and they do sex, and they do they go into the they meet fear, and they do the other extreme. You don't have to do that. You got everything's going to come up.
You don't see any utility in those?
Yeah, you can do those. But the thing is, for us now, what we just talked about is just find that during some practice, for me, usually open-eyed and moving rather than sitting. So rave, walking in nature, ask the question, what is there anything now that needs to be pushed away or me need to add in order to find this okayness that I am? And then all you're doing is you're trying to sink. Your awareness is sinking in, looking, but it's not looking to thought. It's not looking. First, it'll look to thought. It'll look to memory. It'll look to typical longing. Then it'll make, yeah. Okay, that's true. Well, is that really true?
Imagination,
future.
That thing,
if I had that, the future, or if I got rid of this pain in my shoulder, or it's like, okay, but no, I'm just talking about now. On some level, can I find that which is already okay? And is that me? Is that me, or is that a meditation state? If that's me, then all these other states are just coming and going. And I'm here, and I'm not coming and going. Find that. Ramana Maharshi said to Punjaji, find that which doesn't come and go. At the subtlest level, find that which doesn't come and go. So when you find that, and the difficulty is that we're used to finding things with our mind or with our physical touch or our senses, and this is not found by our mind, our will, our even attention. It's found by being or awareness.
And this is the unity mind we're talking about, or the true nature, authentic self?
Yeah, this is all the way to the true nature.
This is the true, okay.
Yeah, it'll go through. It usually goes through as it sinks. It'll go down these levels of what's called everyday mind, subtle mind or mindful, pure awareness, unity mind, true nature.
So is that the practice that you wanted to need to kind of go through, or whatever you recommend?
Yeah. So I'll do the no problem to solve since you did that. Okay. So here we go. So this is a short inquiry.
Okay.
And so inquiry, similar to what we were just talking about, is the premise that there is these parts of us that we're actually looking from, that if they could just relax and rest, that we might be able to subtly recognize this dimension of alert awareness that we're aware of and aware from. And then we might notice that it's not separate from everything else. So we'll start with this part of us that's trying to understand the words I'm saying. It's anticipating there's a problem to be solved, that I try to get it right. Just a normal, everyday mind of that usually we call me. But what if that were a part of us? What if the one trying to understand, trying to get it right, trying to solve a problem was simply a part of us, and we could just ask it for some space? And we could should see from here that that's just a part of us, and then ask that part, thank it for all its hard work, and let it know it can just soften, ask it if it'll just soften back.
And just to clarify, it sounds like we could do this eyes open or eyes closed.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Eyes open and closed, just normal. So just find that part of you and ask it for space. Now you're aware of it from kind of a mindful witness, just a little bit of space. So now notice that part has agency. It can step back and relax. And then curiously, what's here now when there's no problem to solve?
Sorry to interrupt, but which part can have agency?
The part that is you, that's the thinker or the problem solver, can step back. It can choose to soften back or just relax. So can you?
So you would say that has agency, that part?
Yeah. Can you ask if it would just step back, and it will either will or won't. But you're asking. You're not making it do it. You're saying, would you be willing to just step back for a moment? And you can even watch what's going on or experience it. So as this problem solver relaxes and you inquire, you look with awareness, what's here now if there's no problem to solve just now? If you don't go into the past or the future or the thought, just become aware of the alert awareness. And then not only aware of the alert awareness, but what's it like to rest as this thought-free awareness, wordless awareness. And then as this awareness, what's the relationship, if there's not two, to vibration, sensation, energy, feelings, thoughts, your body, and the room? What's it like to be aware and interconnected? And is there anything that needs to be gotten rid of, to be here, to be embodied, and to be okay? And is there anything that you need to get to improve this essential feeling of being? And so just feel into this interconnection or being, or just
that first step is still kind of important, of the asking it to step down as it tries to kind of interpret and make sense and rationalize what you're saying. Yeah,
and parts may kind of try to help, try to understand what's happening. You just thank it for trying to help. Thank you for your help. Just ask it to just, relax back and then come back to this new. So it's a kind of a new view, a new you. So it's, these other parts are used to being in the center. So they're going to pop up You just keep recognizing them. Okay, I see you. It's okay. Just step back. And then just get a feeling for this more spacious, pervasive, awareness-based, alert, interconnected, embodied, spacious self that's not only inside, but also somehow aware of the whole room behind you, within you, above you, below you. So it's unlimited and it's very much here. But what's it like to not have to refer to thought to be alert and here? And then just notice that it doesn't mean that you're dumb or you're stupid or frozen. You could move your hand from here. You could intentionally remember your phone number, use intentional thought, and then let it go. And don't associate with the next thought. Come back to this peace of mind, this embodied presence, this being. And so the curious question is this a meditation state, this which needs nothing and is okay with things as they are? Or is this your essential true nature or nature of mind to which other states will come and go? So this is not the altered state, this is the natural condition to which altered states will come and go. And you can learn to return and train to remain to this beingness, which can move your hand, can use intentional thought, can begin to add complexity and activity and perception without losing its ground. So the key is, as things arise, who or what are they arising to? So there's no problem with anything arising, thoughts, emotions, parts, all welcome, welcome, welcome. By whom, to whom? What's this feeling of being to which everything's arising? And just getting familiar with that. So just take a minute and just welcome what arises and keep not just leaning in to be aware of what's arising, but feeling back and down and subtler to what everything's arising to. So just being aware of who or what this being feels like. And that there's a response here, and see how you feel toward your body and toward any parts that arise. What's the natural beginning of essential qualities of peace or clarity or compassion or kindness, wonder, okayness. So so what would you say from here? What's your sense of, what are you noticing?
Yeah, I think the definitely the parts of trying to understand what you're saying get pretty heavy and thick as we try to do it now, and so just some of the mechanics of, we might be doing it wrong, and we're not there yet, and we should be here but we're not here yet exactly. Right. That can kind of emerge and boil up in consciousness.
Yeah. So that's why, certainly the first time. So, these very simple glimpses, which are this practice, which take about, I have hundreds of these. This is one of them, and they're for different styles of people. So once you do them, a few times, just like any meditation, your mind will start to understand, okay, I know the basics here. I don't have to, I can just let go as they pop up. You'd be like, yeah, I've done this 10 times. So just keep going and trust and let go and welcome. And
Yeah.
so it starts to um, be, and that is the normal thing. That's just the old habit is going to assert itself until, it's recognized just to be just a habit.
Yeah, your pointer for when that part comes up, just see it for what it is and thank it for what it's trying to do. That was interesting. That
Yeah.
was kind of cutting through some of that of like seeing it. Okay, just that compassionate lens that you were, encouraging.
Yeah.
Right, that part comes up and there's a frustration, there's a contraction there
Right.
of like the part wants to understand, but we're not doing the right thing, and we're supposed to be, in this non-witness state, and but just like thinking it like, okay, you're trying to understand, rationalize, intellectualize is what we do, and that's okay, and then kind of just drop kind of from there of like, oh, okay, there's like a separation from that
That's right.
space.
Yeah, that's right. And then you become the bigger field or the ocean. And then eventually you start to feel connected, even when the part, I don't know if I'm getting this right. You just like, okay, sweetheart, you just kind of let go. Yeah, there's a wave. You just start to feel like it's not even other. You just feel like it's just like energy arising, thought arising, emotion arising. But arising is like within this ocean of yourself rather than a witness.
Mm. One just thing, like, so when I drew this out, do you have like a physical like diagram that you've done that like really illustrates this? Because you said that this is was it, I didn't get it exactly
Yeah, I
right.
mean it's something I don't have a diagram exactly because it has to be moving,
Okay.
But I would like to, I've done some animation, and I do want to.
Oh yeah, okay.
I want to do an animation of it. It requires like almost like the way they show planets, moving and things like.
Yeah,
So it's something that actually it's funny that you mentioned that. At like one of my next projects, I'd love to do that.
yeah, because you were pointing out like just like the way I had it here,
Yeah,
like you were saying this is kind of misleading
yeah.
to do it
Well,
this way.
yeah, because it kind of is in some meditations are like that. There's some meditations that end up in witness consciousness. They just keep pulling back, or
Yeah,
even
peeling the layers.
you
Yeah,
even hear this open awareness. You get to open awareness, but that's still two things. Like it's still the sky and the clouds moving through it, or the birds. Whereas once it opens and then it comes back, it's more ocean and wave. So all of a sudden, all the experience is this vast, or if you understand that the cloud is made of the sky, the sky is in the cloud, it's made of the sky. It's not just looking from outside. It's simultaneously, you can be aware of your breath from your chest and from around your chest. So you
okay.
start to feel this kind of holistic feeling. It's kind of what, martial artists train to feel. But you can kind of just shift into it once you get a feel for it.
And so your conversations with Sam Harris, like when you guys are talking about the most important thing, are you talking there with him about unity mind?
I don't quite get there. No. so,
Oh,
so
you don't even get to unity mind. You just
no.
get to pure awareness.
Yeah, we get to Rigpa, or which is, that's the first, that is the most important thing from our ordinary consciousness. But I tend to go a little further. I add these Mahamudra style stages,
Interesting.
and he says, they more occur naturally, so why describe them? But I'm like, okay, but I'll describe them because because they make a difference. Once you get a feel for them, you transcend and include, and you feel this including. That's the move that makes you not feel spaced out or just headless. You don't want to stop at
Hmm.
headless. You want to come in, be embodied, and interconnected.
Mm. And Rigpa means what again? It just means pure
Rigpa
awareness?
Rigpa is the nature mind or awake awareness or pure consciousness.
Okay.
So that goes from no self to pure consciousness, that awake awareness.
Mm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
But then you go deeper. You go then to the unity mind.
Then they go to unity mind or simultaneous mind or same taste. There's a lot of words for it, but none of them are very good. Or non-dual. That's actually what the real word for that is, non-dual presence. Because because it's not two. Because if you're in pure awareness, then what's this? It's a second thing.
What do you mean, like as in self?
If you call the pure awareness me, or you call it like non-dual, you call it non-dual awareness, as if it's the goal, then this is a duality. Then you have a duality because you have non-dual awareness. Well, what is this human form? Unless you've left and gone away and you're dead, you have two things going on, right? Pure awareness and this human relative world. So the Buddhists, the Mahamudras say there's two. There's the relative and the ultimate are not two. They're two truths. So the awareness and the aliveness are not two. Emptiness and appearance are not two. That's the key. Whereas a lot of non-duality stops at pure awareness and says that's non-dual. See, it's not dualistic because it's out of dualistic. Yes, well, but it's only one half of non-dual. You have to come back to realize they're not two, and that's that's what makes it, livable.
And that's the unity mind you're saying you would describe?
Yeah, unity mind or simultaneous. Sometimes it's called simultaneous mind. It's called same taste in Mahamudra as well. Those are the words that are used for it. Non-dual presence. The unity of awareness and appearance. That's why unity. Some people don't like unity because it doesn't have the subtlety of non-dual. It's not one thing it's two things that are not two. That's why non-dual is weird. It's a weird word, but it just makes it, just like you were talking about, it's just an experience of being that's also human. It's not being that's not human, it's being that's human.
And two things, but Sam Harris doesn't see the need to emphasize or differentiate that. He
says it happens naturally, which is more the Dzogchen. The Dzogchen is like you recognize your awakeness, and then it's just natural. Then that's what starts to happen. But Mahamudra, which is also, a different tradition, just says, okay, but let's talk about what that next couple stages are. Let's define them as they come back into naturalness. So it's just it's a little more, and some of the Neo-Advaita says, there's nothing to talk about. It just is. There just is, So they don't even have any levels. There's nothing to do. You can't do anything. It's all already here. So why there's no effort involved in the awakeness, because the awakeness is happening and you can't do anything. So there's no stages. There's no, so there's that. And then there's all these different ways of describing that which is beyond words, as we started this with. So.
And so Sam, he would, so he acknowledges the qualities or
I think
kind of characteristics that you're saying, but he thinks it just naturally comes at the pure awareness level.
Yeah,
like
that's right. Yeah.
So he fully agrees with you, at least on the traits that you're describing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. You just feel the need to be more like precise or granular or specific?
I think it helps to, as we're kind of trying to live it, not just have a kind of a initial awakening. Just because so many people who have had that initial awakening, part
Yeah.
of it is because I've seen the results, of that first awakening. It doesn't, and because of psychology, you can get taken over once you have like, oh, I'm pure awareness and everything's just here, and now the psychology sneaks up on you. So coming back to the simultaneous mind, now you come back to the psyche, to the body and the psyche, and start to do the work from the awake consciousness with your body and your psychology. So that's just because I've been more involved with that part of it.
And would you say that uh, transition or that level of unity mind, would you say that's kind of like uh, applying the pure awareness to like your thoughts, your actions? Like I'm thinking of this thing, or like I'm working through this thing, like applying that through a pure awareness
Well,
lens, integrating that into thought,
it's a
or
shift. It's a shift. It's a shift of mind. It's a shift of identity. It's a shift of location. It's a shift of awareness to who am I? So you're the one who starts is not applying awareness. You recognize, oh, the nature of my mind is awareness, and so now I have intentionality, and let me look from here. Oh yeah, the awareness is primary. It's aware of thoughts. It can use thoughts. It's aware of my body. It can trust that the information's already inherent within it, so I don't have to keep checking with that one who wants to check all the time. So I can just live freer and trusting, and make choices without having to keep getting caught in these polarized parts that keep normally taking over, trying to overthink things.
um, is that does that apply to what I was saying too? Like, is the unity mind like an integration of pure awareness into your thoughts and your psyche? Is that a
Yes,
apt way of saying it, or no?
yes. So that that term non-dual presence is uh, or in the IFS language, you recognize the authentic self, and the self is aware of the parts, is aware of your psyche. So you're realizing that you're not the parts, you're this dimension of awareness-based self. They use identity, self. Buddhism uses mind, nature mind, but they are equivalent. And that's where you're now aware from. And the who am I is the new ground from which you're aware of the humanity and the psychology.
Mm. But that you don't get with just the pure awareness level. What
No,
you just said.
if you stop at pure awareness, you're still out. And that's why many people have had it's what I call the initial waking up from. So you wake up from, then you wake into the awareness, then you wake back down into your body, and then you wake out to action in the world. So you can get caught. Most people who have acted out, which are from all these different traditions, people who I know and have actually treated as a therapist, who I was doing work with some teachers who had fallen, and it became pretty clear that they had authentic initial awakenings into pure awareness, but then they thought that was it, and it was done, and they were free, and everything was just this kind of relative world of but they didn't come back and do the thawing out or the detoxing of their human vehicle.
That's a unity mind stage.
That's a unity mind stage. Yeah,
And that's the waking in.
that's the waking in to your body, waking in, transcending and including waking in. Yeah.
and waking into the psyche.
Waking into the psyche, the body, the humanity, and starting to wake into the interaction. And then interacting with others is waking out. You start to live and work and choose and relate, and then you come back to the psyche gets triggered by that. And then, but then you have this resource of the source of your mind and your identity that's changed. So that's why that's the most important thing, is that first recognition of, oh, there's a different self, there's a different mind, there's a different type of awareness that is already installed within us human beings, and isn't something that's a special advanced meditative quality. It doesn't require being an Olympic athlete in meditation. It's already inherent and can be discovered or uncovered through this kind of process of glimpsing. So, yeah.
And so the waking out is just like a integration of the foundation of being.
Yeah,
pure awareness.
It's in IFS they call it self-leadership. So it's basically now you are the new you, and that has a new view, can start to interact with the world and problem solve and deal with different situations, and start to not feel so self-conscious and neurotic and anxious about situations, because it's all okay, but you're still more, if you've done your inner work, you can be responsible and have integrity and recognize that you're going to make your best effort, but you just let go of the results.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So
yeah, and that's where you would kind of like, you use the word agency.
Yes.
Is that kind of like, like I gotta write this book, or I want to get in shape.
Yes.
And there's fears. Oh my God, it's gonna take like 20 months for me to get to where I want to. And there's shame. I look like a piece of shit. And all this trauma, and like I got bullied, and like you kind of work through that.
Yeah.
And like, would you say like the authentic self is like where then you kind of regain that freedom, and like really, you see those parts that get activated, people look at me I'm just using a random example, but people look at me a certain way, and that triggers me because I felt like, inferior when I was a kid, and this reminds me of that. And like, kind of,
so you start
all these layers.
You start to heal and what's called unburden those parts of holding burdens from childhood that believe, well, this is who I am, because they think they are who you are. So they sit in the seat of the self, they look out of your eyes, and you feel like you are them. So then you see them, and you can say, oh, I can see why. I'll listen to you. What happened? Okay, this happened. And but that's not who you are. You know that? Yes, I know that. So can you let go of those burdens of that story? We take you out of that situation. So you know that you're living here now. You're not living in the household you were when you were 12. You're here with me. And can you let go of the burdens that believe that, which is really what the burden is. The burden is they think they're you, and they think they have to carry this forever. And they can let go, and then they have more space and more vibrancy. And then a lot of their 12-year-old energy can just like, oh, let's go play. They have a kind of a joy, a life, life energy comes back.
And then like making like a big decision, say like what something just comes to mind is, say like, deciding to leave like a toxic relationship that was hard to get out of. And like, that's a decision to make. And there's, if I stay, I get these benefits. If I leave, then it's going to be hard, but there's other bigger, like ultimate benefits. And like making, like, would you say the recognizing the true nature and authentic self can then lead to like kind of more agentic decisions, or more kind of freedom or free will of like making the right, wise choice?
Yes. So this is the model for living awake in the world rather than living in a monastery. So this can happen when you live as a householder or apartment dweller or whatever you want to call it, in a busy life, working, having relationships. You need to have this full kind of advanced yet simple type of meditation, and this most modern form of psychotherapy, so that you can heal, wake up, grow up, heal up, show up, as Ken Wilber says.
Mm. And
So
and make, like, like you would say, be in a place to make wiser
yeah,
decisions.
absolutely. Yeah. And enjoy and not have as much regret or shame about it, or, and the thing is, it's not like it's not like everything goes right, like things go well because you're less stressed. You can decide like, okay, I don't need to do that. I need that. But life happens, and, I got long COVID, and yeah. And just to say that even like my first book, when I first, 20 years ago, started thinking, I'm going to write a book, that took me 9 years to do, from beginning to end. And then my second book, which was like 4 years after that, after I was doing all the practices and, kind of stabilized, that took 9 months. So all that to say that, it's about living in the world and applying all this. It like shows up in, in a way that it's what I call effortless focus and flow. So, which is a whole way of focusing, and a whole way of engaging with external world as well as the internal world.
Mm. Mm.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So this is good. Well, this is a good place, I think, to
Yeah.
finish.
I could ask like 45 more questions, but I'm also, this has been intellectually, and you could say spiritually exhausting. So, I mean that the best possible way.
Yes.
But this is you really spun the wheels of, I guess all the levels: the ego, the witness, the
Yeah.
pure awareness, unity mind, and I don't know if we activated authentic self or what's happening
Yeah.
there, but
We
maybe
got that.
we'll keep working on that.
Yeah.
But this has been a really enriching, fulfilling conversation. I mean, you've really just given me a lot of things to think about, and
Yeah. So glad.
there's a lot that, like you said, that is hard to absorb and
Yeah.
digest. Also, that this is going to take some practice. For
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, and that's the thing, is I don't shy away from, trying to be as clear and practical, but, not staying simplistic. I'm going to go for the heart of the matter, and I'm going to try to get everyone to realize, because that is the final thing to say, is that this culmination of what could be is already here. So the paradox is always awakeness, always unfolding. So the awakeness isn't going to improve, but it needs to be accessed. But then there is a gradual unfolding. So it's less about doing all the gradual work to get to awakening. In this practice, you try to directly recognize your self, or your true nature, or your awake mind, apply it to your body and try to live it. And then it'll take some time to do the healing and the waking up and growing up, but you'll be doing it from your authentic self, rather than doing so much meditation and psychology from the relative level. And then maybe you'll clean up enough to discover it, but you could have done that from the beginning.
Yeah, and this is a beautiful paradox, and I know what you're saying, but this is different, what you're describing, than what you said earlier, of like the the more Advaita Vedanta,
Right.
like everything's already here.
That's right.
And like you're like half agreeing with that, or you're ultimately agreeing with that.
Ultimately agreeing. Ultimately, it's ultimately true, but relatively is just as important as ultimate, because it's the beingness and the humanness are equally important. So they're supposed to go together. And that's actually what non-dual means in the Buddhist tradition. It means ultimate and relative are not two. So the relative is just as important, is where the ultimate rubber meets the road, and you want to show up, and then it gets interesting. Then it's really fun. And it's like an adventure. And it's like, whoa, as I said, I was just making that decision the other day about this thing. Oh, I can get it for free. You know, I don't have to. And then going like, oh no, 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 no. This this is just being having integrity and honesty. That's not the way to live. It's not like a should. It's like a kind of a jolly good fellow that just like is like, no, no, no. What do you, that part you know, wants to like can get away with something, you know, and like it's a, you know, that's, you don't have to do that. There's nothing in that. There's nothing in that. So do the right thing and show up, you know. So it just becomes this kind of dance. Life is a rave.
Yeah. One of my opening lines at the rave is, "I put the Rav in rave." And then people usually laugh.
That's good.
Or they cringe, like, "What the fuck is this guy doing?" But it's usually a good time anyway. And I was just gonna say, by the way, just so you know, I spent a good amount of time in college doing religious studies, and I spent about a year studying Advaita Vedanta.
Okay.
And I found that really interesting. But like all of what you're saying is really taking it to, you know, to different levels that are not in just the texts them. Like, so like would you ultimately agree with the Advaita Vedanta like teachings?
If you'd have to find the right, you have to find the real, you'll see it there, but it's the way it's applied is it gets, the Neo-Advaita doesn't seem to have the same, but the original text,
By Shankara.
Yeah. I mean, but there's always this debate, you know, even within Buddhism, where there's kind of more the Shankara pure awareness guys, and then there's more on the other extreme is like gradual, you have to do the gradual practice. And then the one I'm in, Mahamudra, is right in the middle, which is, you know, it's both, but you do a direct recognition and gradual unfolding. So start with the Shankara, but then come back. keep going by becoming, don't forget the human.
Right. Yeah. And then in the Advaita Vedanta, it's pure awareness, or Brahman is consciousness being bliss. It kind of reminds me, would you kind of put that in the true nature category, or authentic self?
Satchitananda. The question is, what is the sat? You know, the sat would have to be more, truth would have to be the full truth of the relative world as well. You know, Satchitananda. So in the Advaita, they have you know, they have you can follow it there, but you know, some interpret it more extreme. So this is just you know, there's many different philosophies. This Mahamudra tries to recognize, comes from that. And then, you know, there was a time, I'll say this as the last thing, that there's a time in North India when this Mahamudra style, where people were, you know, just awakening in the midst of villages. They were just like, hey, the butcher and the, you know, the candlestick maker were like, hey, check this out, watch this. Oh yeah, wait, isn't that like this? Yeah, and they were all like giving each other, pointing out instruction. It just became a whole culture of awake consciousness that then, you know, there were wars that took over and knocked them out of there. But it's meant for living everyday life.
And so that's where that's the model.
Yeah, it's the model. That's my interest, is being awake in the world and living a fun, authentic, happy, and, you know, relational life.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that, relational. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so we went pretty deep into the weeds and described the stages of awakening, Loch. In terms of next steps, can you tell my listeners and readers what they can do, what practical, actionable steps to start experiencing and witnessing what we're talking about? Because some people might be very confused about what this is and how to get to it. So we want to provide people the knowledge and tools to actually do it.
Yes, and hopefully you've enjoyed some of this and got a little taste. But there's ways to experience it simply. Probably the best way is through my app called Mindful Glimpses. You can get it. There'll be a link down below, and you can just go on to the App Store and look up my name, Loch Kelly, or Mindful Glimpses, and download that. It has a few hundred glimpses that are in different programs meant to kind of lead you through this step by step, introduce you, and then gives a lot of different perspectives, as well as having dialogues with different people like Gabor Mate, Adi Shanti, Sam Harris.
Gabor Mate. That's great.
Yeah, it's Gabor Mate and Dan Siegel, a lot of psychology and spirituality. And then, certainly look at my website, join my newsletter, because there's live and online retreats. One of the things we talked about is a program I just did called Effortless Focus and Flow, which is a way to apply it in your workaday world.
Yeah, I'd love to do one of your in-person retreats at some point. That would be awesome. And in the Waking Up series that I mentioned before, so that only goes up until Pure Awareness. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Those 2 series? Okay.
Yeah, so I don't introduce the IFS, and I just kind of did it according to what Sam asked me to do. I thought, okay, I can do that. And it was a short series. They're both short series. So in my I have programs called Effortless Mindfulness Level 1, Level 2, and the Level 1 goes through the 5 levels of mind, which is what we talked about today. So it introduces you to everyday mind, subtle mind, which is mindful witness, awake awareness, pure awareness, then unity mind, and heart mind, or awake loving flow. So, and talks about and gives you practices for each level and how to transition. So if you're interested, those things are available. And I hope to meet you all sometime soon.
Yeah. All right. Okay, great. Thanks,
Rob.